I'm going to call the meeting to order. Today is February 22nd, 2023. It's 5 p.m. This is the Finance Committee. This meeting will be video recorded and broadcast over local access channel 18 through the town website at www.eastham-ma.gov. And the first item on the agenda is the minutes, and we do not have the minutes today, so we will skip item number 2. And item number 3 is the review of the fiscal year 2024 operating budget for the Public Works Department. So we have John Ruffley with us today. If you'd like to join us up here next to Rich, that would be terrific. And I think everybody, maybe Russ has not met John Ruffley. Russ French.
Welcome.
So I'll let Rich proceed, and or if you want to chat first.
Well, I'll turn it over mostly to John, and I just realized one oversight. I don't recall if I sent an email. Did I send you all the water enterprise?
Yeah.
Okay, I just
Yes.
didn't print it out then, so that was the only thing. I just want to make sure. But John is our, at this point, relatively new DPW director, but he's been here for a while now, so he's getting a better sense of the operation and the budget as we go through this year. This is his first budget process. So he didn't have a lot of input at the time that he arrived. The budget was already in development. But we will be, as we will with all the budgets, revising and refine tuning and revisiting these before we finalize them. So we'll have that opportunity with John, and obviously with your comments as well. And for anybody watching at home, just a quick reminder, the DPW budget is in our operating budget book, which is on our town meeting and budget website page under the finance department. And I think at this point, there should be a link on the home page. I think that was happening this week. So you could find that there, I should say. And I'll turn it over to John.
Okay, hi, everybody. Give you a short background, quick. I moved here from a town in Western Massachusetts. Where I ran a department pretty similar to the size of Eastham, and the town was pretty much equivalent to the size. So I understand the fiscal and staffing constraints in municipality. So with that said, I was presented some questions. I don't know if you want me to start with that, or how you want to proceed.
You might want to go through.
You want to go through?
I'd go through the paperwork the budget that we received, and then maybe some of the questions might be answered as we go, but others might not be, and then we can.
I think,
go with the questions.
John, if you start on the salaries page first. And talk about Mary and the finance committee, you'd probably be interested in about the staffing. And some of these positions at the time that we prepared the budget were filled, but now they're vacant. So John, as you go through that, maybe focus on the positions that are now vacant and how we're going to approach filling those. And that's answering some of the questions at the same time.
Okay.
But the large part of the DPW budget is staffing, as is most of the budgets. As you might all recall, we do budget our salary accounts to be 100% accurate based on the steps and grades that each employee is in. If to the extent there's any extra in the salary budget, so it would be indicated on this page. And for DPW, there isn't, other than under some seasonal and overtime, which we can talk about in a minute.
Okay, as we go through, you'll see some increases, obviously, in the budget due to, as Rich said, so there's some staffing changes, but negotiations and increases due to longevity and
Step increases.
Yeah.
There's no COLA represented in this budget. The steel workers is one of the unions under negotiation. We do have an agreement, but we need to update the select board after, I think it's the next meeting. And then we will be able to make that public.
So at this time, we have a couple vacancies. We're looking for two operator positions, which have been vacant for a while. We have advertised them with no luck so far. We're working to improve that process, possibly promote from within, do some training, and then have them people work their way up into those seats. And then as we get up new applications, we can, we won't ask for the requirements. As to an entry level position, we'll train them as they come in and move up. I think that'll help us get the quality people we need if we train them in-house.
Those job openings have been open for quite a while.
Yes, they have. We're not seeing the qualifications that we're looking for so far.
How are you finding other towns dealing with the same need?
Everybody's pretty much having the same issues. The one thing we notice is towns are poaching back and forth, we kind of do each other a disservice, but it's what we have to do to fill that void.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but our last couple of hires have been from other towns, correct?
Correct, yes.
So we're, I think, competitive in the area, wage and, desirability wise. We always have improvement, right? But everything relatively speaking, I think we're a desirable location. And what John's referring to is we had been hiring or advertising, I should say, for motor equipment operators. So higher level qualifications, you have to have some licenses. So the thought right now that we're trying to exercise is to train up some of our on-staff people, get them the licenses they need and promote them into that position. And perhaps we'll have more success with some skilled laborer positions that are more entry level. And we can maybe even recruit instead of from other towns, perhaps at the tech and places like that, to see if we can get some young folks that might be interested in an entry level position, and then do the same, train them up and get them some experience, get them the hoisting licenses and the CDL licenses they might need for some of these other positions.
So what you're saying is that the people you're thinking you might be able to get, you'd be paying them less, but you'd be paying some more money to train them in order to get them to the level that you want them to be at.
Absolutely.
Well, if I heard a little bit different. I heard what you want to do is promote within, pay for the training for those persons to move up.
First, we'd like
And then
to do
hire
that,
at the entry
then we'll
level.
hire some entry level. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have luck at all this year with any hiring? I only see one vacant position here.
About that too.
Yeah.
See the one vacant on the budget.
Maybe this list came
This is-
out
so-
after another one left or something.
Yeah, this is worked on. Remind you, I think I say this every time, but this first draft budget, the salary projections are started in September or in the fall. So a lot has changed or could have changed from
Okay.
any of these budgets to now. But right now, our operations manager and general foreman is a vacant position.
So I do see that one person is not shown for 24. Jeffrey Peters.
He retired.
Oh, he retired. I was wondering whether somebody grabbed him from another
Yeah.
town.
No, he retired. So that's a position that's open. And there was a previous position the year before. Above that was our operations manager position. Previous to that, he was moved up from an operator. So
Mhm.
we lost him as an operator as well back previous to me. So that's why we were looking for two at the time.
So where are the people, if you're hiring them at a lower level, where are they living?
The people that were, well, I'd like
Well,
to.
I'm just saying you're trying to hire people at a lower level. I'm just wondering where they're going to live.
Yeah, well, as we all know, housing is an
Oh, I
issue.
know, I know.
Workforce housing is an issue, and along with, just being the wages being competitive with the market today, the housing market, it's tough. But we could probably get local people, people that are already here, that just don't have them licenses that
Mhm.
we're requiring off the top now. So they'll come in as a laborer. They chances are they have they have to have a driver's license, but we'll look to get them their CDL and their hoisting license and move them up as they're there.
These are, honestly, I think they're pretty attractive positions for someone that,
Has the
has
skill.
not, this aptitude. I think they're good positions for the local economy. It's just a matter of having the positions open, which is why we're trying to move up the guys we have in some of our positions into higher skill positions and higher at the entry level. See, maybe we'll have more success at that.
I
And we
think you
do-
also have- I'm sorry. Shane.
I was gonna say the other thing, and I don't know if John, you'd like to speak to it. One of the things that we do within the public works budget, and that's why we budget our salaries as a total, but this really consists of several different divisions. We've got our, highways, and we've got our sanitation and our natural resources, as well as our municipal buildings and maintenance. And not in every single case, but in some cases, we can reassign workers amongst the divisions to do different work as it arises. And we actually have someone in our natural resources department or division that has some of these licenses.
I
And-
saw Nicole driving a big thing one time. Is it her?
No, well, she does too.
She does too, yeah.
But,
Like,
but
did you get to drive
we have the
that?
opportunity to reassign
Yeah.
a couple of natural resource folks into some of these MEO positions,
Yeah.
which might open up a natural resource position, so we're
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty.
exploring
busy
all
too.
these different avenues of that, trying not to be taking the traditional approach of how we've
Yeah.
done it in the past, because that's what we really need to do.
I got a question on Jeffrey Peters, who you said retired. There's no money for that position over in the 24 budget.
Yeah, I think that position was actually consolidated. I'll have to go back and get how that happened. Off the top of my head, I don't recall.
Yeah, it must have moved down to.
We're hiring somebody for nothing.
motor equipment operator line. No, it's listed as vacant, so.
I have another question. When you have DPW out of grade pay, are those people that are at the top of their grade and you're just giving them a little additional money, or what is that exactly?
That, and again, if John would wants to add any more flavor to it, he can, but that's more people that are, if, for example, we had a skilled laborer and we asked them to work as a MEO, we'd pay them for that type of work that they're doing for that period of time. There's some grace period. I don't think you get it for every hour that you might do something, but if you're assigned as an MEO role as a skilled laborer and you're qualified for it, you'd get paid MEO rate.
So similar to like in the police department where somebody steps up and takes over the supervisor role for a period of
Exactly.
time and steps
Yeah.
back.
That's
Gotcha.
more of what I've seen it used for.
Okay.
What's the amount allocated down there? The
Where are you, Rick?
$46,000 under 2024 budget.
Under, yeah, David White.
So that's our new position of facilities foreman. It's funded 50% from our rental revolving fund. So this is the town center plaza that we own now. We have tenants that pay rents and other tenants that are paying rents in other buildings now. That goes into a rental, those receipts go into a rental revolving fund and are used to maintain those buildings. Part of that maintenance cost is that they'll support 50% of that salary. So that's a new position in this year's budget, but only half of it is funded through the general fund. But my approach is I want all positions reflected on this salary sheet, otherwise
Right.
not that we have a lot going on in East Ham, but who knows how things might change over the years, and I'd rather have 100% of the salary shown and any reductions taken out. So you see that.
I'd rather have 100% of them shown and the funding done on a separate. Because it disappears from the totals and then you have difficulty going year to year on the totals if you have that kind of stuff going on, but I understand what you're doing.
I had just a quick question. Later on, I see reference to a tree warden, but I don't see a staff person as a tree warden. Is that one of the contracted services, or is that a duty of somebody else that's already on here, like Nicole or
So that's
somebody.
an issue I think John's just started dealing with, right?
Yeah, so at this point, that position is vacant and it was previously held with Jeff Peters. The person that retired, he was the tree warden as well. So we're working on that.
So it's not a full position, separate position. It's under. it's
Yeah,
a
At this
s-
point, it's a placeholder in the event that we need to get some tree work for any number of reasons. You could
Right.
have trees over a town building or facility or something that's, falling over a road, a public way that we need to
Right.
take care of. So
Okay, thanks.
And I have a question under the overtime. You have a municipal buildings overtime. And you have the figure of 700 for 23, and then you show 5,000 for 24.
this is something I was gonna speak to. You're gonna see this in each of the DPW divisions, increases in overtime. That was intentional. Jackie and I sorry about that. Jackie and I had discussed that early on, and especially on building maintenance. The ability to have contractors show up to do work is becoming exceedingly difficult. A, B, to have them do the job that we want, and then C, to do it at a reasonable, what we would all consider a reasonable price. So we're finding that a lot of our staff have the skills to do some of this work. And some of these staff, you ask where they're coming from. A lot of them are from up Cape, the Mid Cape area, Harwich. And they work second jobs because it's hard and cost of living so high. So we feel that we better served by having our in-house staff do some of this work. And it's not just these are would be actual assignments that we'd craft almost like work parties. Here's our goal of these assignments need to get done. Here's the time frame for getting them done. And then John and his staff can talk to them, all right, how many hours is it going to take and when can we schedule those hours, and have our guys come in on overtime to complete that work. And we think that's just a much more effective way of doing it than relying on contractors. We still have to rely on contractors, but for the relatively low hanging fruit that we think we can easily accomplish, these guys are busy, and I'll let John speak to that. He's, working on setting operational schedules on a day-to-day basis. But that time is spoken for. There's not extra time for extra facilities work. And so that's why we up the overtime. The alternative would be, hire more staff. But we think we have the staff on hand that can do it. So I'm not sure that we see the need beyond the one facilities position.
So which account would the savings come out of? If we use our own people for overtime?
Well, it'd be,
I thought David White was hired to do that work. And he's the one that we we're just talking about, for
Yeah.
the 92,000. I thought he was hired in order to assist us in doing the types of things that you've just
all right, well, we
described.
can decrease overtime and I'll have our facilities manager do all the work by himself.
No, I'm just trying to understand the reasoning for hiring David White. And you're saying that that's still not enough?
We've got a backlog of work, and we've got Town Center Plaza, and we've got the Beach Plum, and we got 550 Massasoit, and we've got 8, if not 10, individual properties
Yeah.
that we've been contracting out to a nonprofit management agent that have been neglected for a number of years. So we've got a huge, never mind just the regular traditional municipal facilities that need attention. And so that's our approach. What expense account would be an expense account under repairs and maintenance or professional and technical? I don't think you're going to see them go down, but what we're trying to do is have them not go up as much as they might otherwise.
How was the nonprofit agency that you were contracting out to paid through from the Affordable Housing Trust?
Yeah, we've got a contract. I'm not, it is what it is. If we were to renew it and move forward, I wouldn't do it on the approach we're doing it. Basically, they take all the rents, pay all the costs, set aside some amount for maintenance, which isn't a lot. And then whatever's left, we split 50-50. And the housing trust gets, nominal amount back every quarter. And our contemplation is that we're not sure that's the best way for us to do it, but we don't know what we don't know. And so we looking to take some of that in-house, most likely.
I think just to add to what Rich said about going to be seeing this throughout the departments in DPW. We talked about the Dave White position, but in DPW, just drainage projects that we know, our guys are capable of doing, but sometimes we're overworked. We have too much to get done during an 8-hour period. So if we schedule this drainage project where we know we can get it done on overtime and the guys are skilled enough to do it, we'll still save a lot more money doing it in-house
Oh, I
rather
agree.
than hiring out, there's a contractor to put a catch basin in or, so on. So I think, I just,
plenty of-
Overtime is cheaper than going outside.
absolutely.
There's plenty
Absolutely.
plenty of work to be assigned. It's
And,
the assignment.
I'd rather pay our guys the overtime than them leave the town of Eastham and go to a second job. If they don't have to go to a second job, if I can offer them that, a few hours overtime at night, and it'll get our work done as well.
You get the willingness of the staff to do it too, you think?
Absolutely, yeah.
What percentage of your staff live in town versus come from other towns? Just roughly. Is it
Um,
50%? Is it less than 50%?
Yeah, less than
Is
50%.
it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, at this time, I think maybe 2 or 3 guys, so
2 or 3 out
2 or
of,
3.
how many do you have roughly?
16, I think.
16,
right
okay.
now.
That's good. Okay, thanks.
Is overtime still time and a half? Okay.
Yeah.
But no change in benefits or anything.
No,
I just want to, Chief Bohannon, when we were looking at, to hearing about the police budget, said 20 years ago, he had this many officers. The same as today. And I don't know, you probably don't know how many from 20 years ago, but things have changed a lot. It doesn't seem like there's enough staff to grow with the growth we've had, but
Yeah, the 2 ads are that facilities coordinator position
yeah.
and then the part-time custodian, which we added in the prior year, full-time.
Yeah, and I see the custodial, Teresa's gone from half to full-time, so
Right.
that's an expansion.
So those are 2 ads for this year in addition to the overtime.
Uh-huh.
We think it's money well spent.
Yeah.
Especially if we're going to contemplate taking on some, we already own some of these buildings.
Yeah,
And then if we're going to contemplate taking on the other ones in lieu of a service contract, that might not be in our best interest, but these are things we'd be needing.
you guys are doing a lot
Rory's got a
with a
question.
little.
Mary.
Roy?
Yes, Rich and John, I like your strategy about capitalizing on the skills of your current staff. Does that enable them to give up second jobs?
I'd hope so. We got to show that it's regular and recurring. I mean,
Right,
I think these are good jobs, but despite them being good jobs for somebody with this particular skill set, the cost of living here is still high.
Mhm.
So don't ask me to give up a regular stream of income
Mhm.
for a promise.
Mhm.
And so, that's part of what we got to manage.
right. Okay, thank you.
So if we were using some of the rental income to pay for the contractor, can we use the rental income to help pay for these positions?
We're using rental income for 50% of the facilities coordinator. That's what I
For
felt.
David White.
It's what I felt comfortable
Right.
allocating, if we get through another year and we see where we stand. I mean, I guess it,
Wondering whether.
It depends
the
on-
whole thing.
Get it?
vacancies too, right?
Sure.
Assuming everybody's,
So you are using some of it to pay for that, yeah.
Right. so basically it's half of it's being towards this half of the salary and the other half is contractors and maintenance issues and insurance and stuff, the operating costs of it.
What is the income that we're receiving from the town center, the rental income? Are they paying what they pay? Well, they owned their places before, so how is that working?
They didn't own before, they paid rent and
They
they pay
paid rent
rent now.
before?
Yeah.
Okay,
And that's a great question, Marion, but I don't have it off the top of my head.
okay.
Mary, I think it's a little over $100,000 a year.
I remember something like that from
The agreement
before,
was they were gonna continue paying the same rent they were paying, except they were
That's
gonna pay it to us.
but what?
They were gonna pay it to us.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Jackie.
Welcome.
Salaries.
So John, just one last question on the overtime. I noticed it jumped up, just shy of 30%, but that's because you're going to use more of the in-house staff. I understand that. So does that mean that, is there someplace else in the budget where something's gone down? Contracted services or something as a result of not calling those people in? Or is this part of a catch up of the backlog?
Well, I find the purchase of services has gone up $55,000.
No, this is a backlog and it's the taking on of additional buildings.
I asked a
Yeah, I
question
mean,
before to get some-
every, obviously, as we all know, everything's gone up,
Sure.
and it's this budget is, these increases are very conservative, from my point of view. And, we're just,
The way I think I might consider it, and it's hearing, we'll have Rick's comments and for the rest of the finance committee. Maybe the way to picture it is anything you see in the expense side of the budget is for the regular expenses we're used to having up through this past fiscal year. And the overtime and the facilities position, although they will help with the regular stuff that we've used to do, it's really to address the new buildings and the potential units that we'll be bringing on to manage and the backlog of all of them.
Okay, yeah, because when I was looking through the expenses, I looked at contracted services where I thought you told me it wasn't gonna go away. You're still gonna need some outside help. I didn't see any budget in there at all this year. I didn't see any budget in there actually for last 3 years. So maybe I'm looking at the wrong line where it said contracted service. It just talked to drainage cleaning, road markings. Maybe they're not the same contracted services that you're referring to for the type of work you're talking about with the overtime.
Well, we've got a couple different budgets, right? We've got the general maintenance, which
Yeah.
is kind of like the
Maybe
highways
we should
budget.
make sure that we're all looking at the same page here.
Yeah,
right.
It can get confusing.
so if you get past the salaries page, the next is expense budget section.
Yep.
And that's the general maintenance and expense detail. And then if you would flip the page. Then you've got the municipal buildings expense detail. That's like our facilities department.
Okay, and that does have a. budget.
General maintenance is like the highway department.
Yep.
And then if you go another couple pages, you've got our snow and ice expense detail. That's our snow and ice budget, which we flatline because once you appropriate the amount, the state requires you to appropriate the same amount going forward, whether you use it or not. So we have just an amount to handle token amounts, but if we're over, we understand that we have to fund it otherwise. But why budget something that you might not need? And then past that, we've got streetlights detail, which is basically one line item. And then past that, the waste collection and disposal, that's the transfer station.
And that's where the major purchase of services budget
And you're gonna
is.
see some big increases there.
Could we go back in case people have questions?
Yeah, I'm just going through all of them.
Oh,
and then
okay,
We'll go back.
Okay,
And then after the transfer station, we got the tree warden, was asked about.
Yeah.
And then finally, after the tree warden, you've got the section that has the natural resource division. So the salaries are all in one department-wide budget, but each division has its own expense accounts to manage.
so I'll ask folks if they have any other questions back to the salary section before we get into the expense section for the various departments that Rich just mentioned.
Go to the general maintenance expense then.
Yeah,
So the
yeah, yeah.
first
So I
expense
just
section.
want to make sure that there weren't any other questions at the moment for the salary section. So if I don't have any, we'll go on to the general maintenance expense detail.
And I'll let John speak to this one's actually compared to all the others, the easier, which is not usually the case. This one hasn't changed all that much other than increasing for supplies.
Mhm.
You can see that there's been some overspending on restocking basically basic supplies that they use in the day-to-day things. And that's under the supplies budget. And then also we're anticipating contractual increases in uniform requirements. And so we've increased the uniforms, which is getting us pretty close to what we've been spending anyway. Those are the two biggest increases. One area that I want to point out, and this is an area for John and I to talk about when we get in, as we're coming out of the winter and road maintenance season. But he does have a budget under other charges and expenses at $70,000. And we need to talk about the utilization of that versus how we utilize what we put in the capital budget. The intention of this is for, he had talked about drainage basins and stormwater type stuff. We do have stormwater requirements, and so John and I need to talk about. I have a feeling that we will repurpose some of the money that we've appropriated for stormwater into this budget, but it depends on, his needs now that he's been, he hasn't even been here a year, so he needs some time to assess some of these needs, but we haven't been spending that budget, and it has been set aside for basic maintenance tasks for highways division. I don't know if you want to speak to any of that.
I have a question. When I know a number of people have asked about the road repairs due to the water project. Is any of that I see under road maintenance, road repairs, road improvements, et cetera, is that anywhere in here, or is that all coming from the monies that are left over from
It's all out
the
of the water project.
water project?
Yeah, at this time, we've paved over 100 roads, private roads after the water project. I did quite a bit this past year. So that's moving along
Mhm.
nicely. And it's,
So your people that are doing that are being paid out of the monies that are left over from the water.
yeah, and that's
Water
all
project.
contracted through that contract, and those contractors that are doing the water line are also the ones contracting the paving out. So
Oh,
So it's not in-house.
so it's
labor.
nothing's in-house. We're out patching and doing our maintenance, but all the paving is being done.
because
by the
I thought at the beginning, there wasn't money in the water contracts for the roads. It's only up later, later contracts where there were in there to pave the roads, not at the beginning.
But we had savings and we just held our fire a little bit. So there was savings realized in the contracts, and those did go back to do the phase 1 roads. And Jackie, I think. probably has a-
Jackie?
Yeah, Mary, by contract, we can't hire our own people to do the roads and pay them out of the water contracts. We have to negotiate a price with the people that have won the bid. And so they're doing all the repairs, all the repaving that's due to the water project. And Rich is right. So we didn't have any money in contract 1 contracts, the first 8 contracts for road paving, repaving, but we started to put it into phase 2 because we saw that we were able to afford it. So now we're going back and doing the phase 1 roads, and that's what John was talking about. We've accomplished a lot of those this year, and we'll continue to do it for the next 3 years until the water contract is finished.
So the roads from the first contract are being redone by monies that were saved from that contract by those same contract people? Who's doing the work for the first one?
The work will be assigned and negotiated with the contractor that has the subsequent contract. So
Oh,
for
the
instance,
sub-
contract 19, we will say we want to add 26 road pavings to contract 19.
Oh, okay, okay.
They will give us a price on that based on the price that was fixed in the contract.
If we're gonna end up with a freshly paved town, then our maintenance costs for roads should be under less pressure, right?
Right, and that's what, I think that's what we're seeing in here, and so that's, you know, by the next budget cycle.
Yeah.
We gotta see what work, and what I'm thinking, this is not reflected in here, but the thinking is. We do have stormwater MS4 requirements, and I'm thinking we can repurpose what we have in the capital plan into perhaps that's an opportunity for us to repurpose it into here.
And stormwater.
That's smart.
John, just one question on the roads. Do you see a turning over of private roads to the town? In other words, we have over 100 private roads, I believe, in the town, if I'm not right. And are you seeing annually, more and more of them being turned back to the town? Or do you see that leveling?
Jackie could probably speak to how many roads that would be getting turned over to the town completely, but as far as, I know one of the questions were, the snow plowing, we get about 5 new requests a year, on average, of people who want their private roads plowed.
Right.
So we're taking on a little more of that every year, but as far as the actual entire road being taken over by the town.
You're not seeing a lot of that?
I'm not seeing it. I don't know if Jackie. or Rich-
We tried with our road, we were unsuccessful.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
agree with John.
everybody has to agree, has to be.
My
Yeah.
own road just,
I wouldn't take it.
my own road did get turned over to the town, so I was just wondering if
Yeah.
other roads
all
follow the
those.
same purpose.
Jackie?
We tried. We were
Situation
unsuccessful. I wouldn't take it.
the situation, more often than not, is that a majority of the private roads do not meet the specifications to become a town road ever. So there's a few of them that will never, ever be able to be a town road because they, when the subdivision was granted, they wanted a narrow road, a dirt
Dirt road,
road, and we
yeah.
don't have any of those in our public, other than Hay Road, which of course was a special exception.
Mhm.
But in general, most people will start to explore it. And then if their road is in good condition, they'll continue with it. But we require that they bring their road up to
Yeah.
our standard before we take it on, just like, the electric company does before they take on new utilities. So
Yeah, and
we
you gotta
don't have a lot that are
incentives.
successful.
That's money directly out of their pocket,
Yeah.
and they've got to get everybody on board, and it's very difficult.
Yeah, my neighborhood was pretty easy, to be honest with you. The town had just paved the roads. It was beautiful. We trimmed some trees and, it cost us to trim the trees. But other than that, it was. very
That's the
nice.
time to do it, Tom.
Yeah, well, but you're not seeing that trend. I understand what Jackie's saying. A lot of some of these roads are
Very
very
narrow.
small driveways, and you're just
Dirt.
about right. You don't
Yeah.
probably want them anyway.
Mm.
But I didn't know if people were trying to get out of owning the road business, and that's not the case. Okay, thank you.
At this time,
We
we're
don't even
plowing
know.
about 56 of them.
Like Nick said.
56.
56 private
Still
roads
could
is what we're plowing.
Oh,
If it snows.
yeah.
Never snows again.
Yeah, I was surprised until Rich made that comment about the 84,000, that's in the budget for snow. You have to budget for that every year. But,
That's correct.
but even, we looking back a couple of years ago, it seems like we'd spend more than that anyway every year.
Yeah,
You couldn't get by in that budget, so we can't budget for more.
Budget more, but then you're stuck having to budget the more all the time.
Oh,
Okay.
It's kind of like an
So
override.
why budget for something you may not use? So we budget it nominally to cover mild winters, and then if you have.
So
couple
it
big
averages out
storms,
over time as
we know we need to, we have reserves to cover these things. Often those reserves come from within the DPW budget. So, when you look at, that road maintenance thing that we're just talking, that perhaps we could cut that back or put something else in there and, in addition to that, like the MS4 stormwater stuff. That's fine, but then that's not available to cover the snow overage.
Yep.
Which is fine. We've got other spots too. I'm not saying we're tight, but you start tightening up all these things and then you do become tight.
Yeah, what does the state you said the state requires you to budget the same amount every year. You can go back and look at it any time, but you've got to keep moving forward with the higher number. Is that what the rule is? Okay,
I don't know anybody that's ever, well, no one's ever
cut it.
went higher, so.
Yeah.
But I
Oh,
suppose,
really?
you know, I'm
Okay.
sure we could finagle some arrangement where we would petition them and ask, you know, for some
You
relief.
don't
but-
allow us to save money.
There's no problem going over. I mean, that's not
Right, so you're legally allowed to.
you're
incur
legally
that
allowed to
deficit.
spend more on snow and ice
Right,
than.
but then you got
Then
to
the
pull it out
budget.
of your budget somewhere.
But we just got to
else.
make sure that we have other budgetary savings and by the end of the year, we take those budgetary savings to cover that shortfall.
That's
you
right.
know,
Lots of the towns that are in a very tight budgetary arrangement. They end up having to carry that deficit over and it impacts their free cash certification and end up having to fund it in their next year's budget. And it's a continuous cycle of catching up.
Mhm.
And that's a way to do it, but not probably the preferred way.
Okay,
And
thank
I
you.
should remind the finance, we have 200,000 in reserves
Right.
for the finance committee.
Mhm.
For things, depending, yeah, things that come up, yeah. Okay, are there any other questions, comments, et cetera, on the general maintenance expense detail?
Under municipal buildings, this is my brief, because I did put this together mostly prior to John's arrival or while he was just arriving, getting acclimated. But this was, it had seen basically all the increases here are inflationary. All the rates for our contractors have gone up, especially on HVAC, and I don't know if John can probably can speak to that better than I can. But all our outside contractor rates have gone up, and that's what this basically reflects.
I have a couple of questions on this one. Under the professional and technical. I don't see listed. You've got a number of things listed here. Gutters, cleaning the gutters and window washing. I don't see either of those two items under the professional and tech. You've got the elevator, the pest control, the fire extinguisher, et cetera, et cetera.
Prior,
See anything for window washing and gutters?
prior to me coming, I think it'd been a while. I think just in-house staff was doing the gutter cleaning, which I'm gonna start ramping up as I look around. I see the gutters and we will be ramping that up. Window cleaning, again, that's being done in-house. At one point, the library was doing, I think we were splitting it with the library because of the size of the building. I think we need to look at that, and I don't know if you put it in another line item or if we take it out of where was it? I don't know, I guess I'll just ask. you
No, we need to-
if we were coming out of
Well, I think that those two items, in particular, the gutters are important to do because I think it's important to maintain our buildings.
Mhm.
And we had a situation at the library where we had plants growing in the gutters, so that's not a good scenario. So I'd like to see those two items
called out in the
Under the-
professional services.
under the professional and technical services, along with everything else here.
Sure, we can rearrange some things or add a few things.
Any other comments or questions under the municipal buildings?
Just one quick one. John, does the DPW does the fire alarm testing, the fire department doesn't do that?
It's contracted out, the
really?
actual
Okay.
testing of them
It
is
is?
contracted out, yeah.
Oh,
Is that
okay.
a licensed?
Yeah, it's a special license you have to have. We wouldn't want that liability.
No, it just, the fire department doesn't carry that kind of capability.
No,
then,
they don't
huh?
do it.
It's, okay. Interesting.
What's the wastewater treatment system inspection, maintenance, plumbing, pumping?
That is for the septic pumping in the town buildings.
Municipal buildings?
Yeah. Any other questions in that line item?
I just got one question on private road plowing. Are all the private roads that are plowed, are they 40 foot wide, 40 feet wide? Or are they, some of them less than that?
Some of them are less than that. Yeah, we don't use the requirement for plowing them, as the same requirement as the town taking them over. So some of them are less, yes.
Are we down to the snow and ice?
Pretty much
What's-
covered that earlier. Yeah, what's nice?
I just have a question, was I'm looking to see, we have an actual for supplies in fiscal year 22. I'm on item number, or budget line number 540000 of 109,000, and we've got 40 for the budget, 40,000 listed for the fiscal year 24 budget. Can somebody explain to me why there was, I guess why there was an actual of 109,000 and we're now budgeting for 40, or
This is the
What-
snow and ice, so we budgeted really in total. It's 84,000 is what we budgeted. I guess I went up a few $100s just to make it a round number a couple years ago. But we don't increase snow and ice. Typically, we do spend that in deficit if we have a couple of big storms.
I think you're talking about a different line though, Mary, aren't you? You're talking
Yeah.
about supplies
yeah, I'm talking about supplies.
under, it says
Yeah,
vehicle
Yeah, but-
supplies and public works supplies. It's it's a $40,000
But
budget.
it's gotta be 40 to make the number come out right. To make the 84 come out.
We're really
Oh, I
budgeting
see- I see
84,
what you're
it's
saying.
really
I see what
budgeting
you're
a bottom
saying.
line.
I-
We could allocate the 84 any way you want, but
Now I understand what you did.
What,
I think Mary's saying that actual in 22 is way more than that, because did we just buy a whole bunch of pre-treated salt and we're storing it?
that's.
That good.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna. go for.
Yeah.
Yeah, the actual is, that's what we spent in, usually it's salt,
Yeah.
pre-treated salt.
So we'll have enough left for probably a
there could be some of that, but I mean, there will be year, we do. The point though, I thought I made clear was we will overspend. We go into every year thinking if we have a snowstorm or two, that we will overspend our $84,000 snow and ice budget.
Mhm.
I mean, not just some flurries, but if you have any significant snowstorm of 6 inches plus, we have a couple of those, we will expend our $84,000. So it's really a nominal amount of funding for storms.
Yeah, so this 84, this whole page here is really just fitting into the $84,000 budget, really. When it gets down, because the first thing that jumped out at me here was the snow plow maintenance. I don't have to tell you, plows get beat up pretty hard plowing anything.
Absolutely.
And it looks like our budget wouldn't be enough to take care of two.
Exactly,
You know what I'm
exactly.
saying?
We put new blades on every plow this year. We probably,
Yeah, exactly, right.
so we-
Okay. So this goes back to your early comment, got an $84,000 budget, we're fitting the budget, anything else, we're gonna try to absorb from free cash or whatever later on.
Right.
Rich, and that fiscal 22, wasn't that the year we had the blizzard?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
If you can maintain all your plows for 3,000, I know a lot of people want to talk to you.
Any other questions on the snow and ice expense detail?
streetlights.
Streetlights. How many streetlights do we have in town?
Too many. Or some people say not enough.
Touch my street light.
I'm sorry, Rick?
Don't touch my street light. That's
That's
how I know where to make the turn.
You can take mine away anytime you want.
Yeah.
I don't want to open a can of worms, but just for your information. And this is actually something I'd love to work on someday, but it's not really high up on the priority list, but East Ham's the only town in Cape Cod that owns its, doesn't own its streetlights.
Doesn't own its streetlights.
Streetlights.
Who owns them?
The
Must be
Eversource.
Eversource.
Ah. That's good. Because if there's a problem, they're supposed to fix them, right?
Well, the issue. Exactly, they do.
Sounds good.
And they come
Sounds
out and they fix them, but you know. It is expensive our electric bills are expensive. If, you know, in the future, we were to buy the streetlights, switching them all over to LED. We would cut our expenses. I've experienced in my past job, we cut the expenses significantly. Almost to the fact that they paid for themselves in the first year.
Wow.
So
Yeah,
just
you know,
something.
All that stuff Eversource sends out about save, conserve energy and switch to LEDs. They don't even.
They don't
switch
do
to
They
it.
won't do it. They won't do it.
Really?
Well, it's not
And it-
their energy, they're
And
saving.
we were actually, there were a couple roads in the previous town where we actually did put an LED up. And that wasn't a light we bought and we got penalized for it. They penalized us for adding a LED to one of their lights. So
And matter of fact, this
So-
budget line item is currently gonna be on track to be over expended for this fiscal year. So it's my first tracking item for budget
What's driving that?
transfers by the end of the year,
What's driving that, Rich?
electric rates.
Oh, the rates, okay.
So should we buy our own streetlights
Someday,
someday?
Um,
Okay.
you know, the other issue in addition to LEDs is a lot of towns are looking for 5G, you know, wireless mesh networks. And as it turns out, a lot of the more recently purchased and installed streetlights around the Cape have that compatibility. That, you know, their little sensors they have on top that tell you whether it's daytime or nighttime.
Oh, they
It can
turn
also be wireless nodes for wireless mesh networks. So that's a way to build out, you know, we have internet issues in town. Someday, you know, love to address that issue.
Yeah,
And
that
that
would
would,
be a great thing.
potential
for
way to
town
do it.
address. It's terrible around here. It's,
Well, you wouldn't have to sit in the library parking lot.
Responsible for the lights on sick?
no, those are ours, I think.
those are, yeah, I believe we are.
what would it cost to purchase the streetlights? Do we know?
I don't, back in the day, I used to know this stuff, but I don't remember off the top of my head unless John has some.
Is,
I know in the previous town, it was just over 100,000
Per light.
to purchase the streetlights.
and you went and did that
Yeah.
and
we
you
did it,
replaced the
yeah.
lights with LEDs?
We
and you
replaced
got your
them.
Payback
Yeah,
in 5
the-
years or?
The replacement was actually, we got a Green Communities grant. That's how we paid for the LEDs.
Mhm.
So, and that's available to us as well. So something to look at for the future.
As a matter of fact, there's some turnover with, you know, obviously with ourselves, but also with, Green Communities Division, at DOER. So we have the Green Communities Grant and we're actually, this week I'm supposed to be getting back that, John and I met with them. And we're getting an updated plan, because some of the things that had been identified to be, part of our energy reduction plan had been addressed. So now we're looking at what the, remaining biggest and best projects are to do to achieve energy efficiency and savings. And so we should get that this week, John. And that's a good point. I hadn't thought about using Green Communities as perhaps of buying that out. So we could revisit it as part of that.
What's the amount that you were anticipating getting?
168,000 some odd dollars, I think.
So it's something for you, you can go after yearly or?
This is what's called the designation grant.
Okay.
So we have a slew of projects that we will have to complete. Once we complete those projects, then we can get a yearly competitive round.
I got you. Oh,
But Eastham actually did a lot of energy efficiency projects in prior years. So we don't have a lot. We have a lot of deferred maintenance, but not a lot of energy efficiency things. But I think John has some good experience in his prior community on Green Communities itself, right?
Mhm.
So I'm looking forward to working with him on identifying some projects.
Any other comments on the streetlights detail? We'll go on to the waste collection.
I'll let John speak to it, other than to say this is probably the most sensitive area and biggest element of risk in our budget, probably across the town, I would say.
Okay, so at this time, I haven't dove very deep into this budget. I recently asked somebody to start helping me out tracking the numbers, somebody in my department to help tracking these numbers to see where we're at as far as what's coming in and what's going out. So with that said, I need to get a good grasp on what's going on here. And I just haven't had the time since I've started to.
But as far as a general trend, you are aware and you do know of the increases in tipping fees, transportation costs because of gas surcharges and other things of that nature, right?
Yes, recycling fees, a lot of things that we used to get paid for, now we're paying to dispose of. That trend goes up and down.
Getting
Those
to
are
be an expensive business.
those are an order of magnitude of probably 20 to 30% fluctuations. So the hope here is that, to the extent we've seen some, I'd call surge pricing in the recent months, that perhaps that subsides a bit. I don't know if that's something you're
We're
foreseeing.
not seeing yet.
Mhm.
It's, goes along with the energy costs,
Mhm.
so.
We're still making money on mattresses?
Yeah, I was gonna ask that question. I
Yeah, yeah.
don't see the mattresses on here.
$50 for a king.
Where is that? Where is the money we're getting from all the mattresses we're recycling? Where is that in here?
I don't believe it's called out in the actual
not in
operating
here.
budget, but, I do know mattresses now are costing us money to get rid of. They're not.
They're not a moneymaker anymore.
Oh, so in other words, we were accumulating mattresses and then we had a deal where we got some money for them. But that's not happening anymore.
No, that's the trend we're seeing with a lot of recyclable and mattresses.
To the extent we were getting money, all these receipts are general fund receipts, so they default to the general fund and they're, I'm not sure what the line item is. There's, a relatively nominal revenue line item
Mhm.
in the general fund under the DPW that tracks that. I got that note, so I'll see what I can find.
That's right. My question was whether since they didn't see it, whether we were still doing it or not.
We are still taking them in.
Where do we truck our trash to, John?
Rochester, most of our
Rochester.
solid waste, it goes to Rochester,
There's a-
CMAS.
So that's a big challenge for us. That contract, and this is something I have to work with John on, I think expires in 2025. I think it is, or 25.
25, yes.
So next year's budget
Mm.
will be a renewal, and that's something that we need to probably get on, soon. That's a long tail on negotiating that.
Mhm.
But everyone's anticipating, and this was a 25-year agreement. I think it was 2000 was the last it was negotiated.
25-year?
And different towns across the Cape are in different cycles of that. So part of our effort will be to contact those towns that have done it recently and see their
Yeah, see what
experience.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, what are other towns doing?
But yeah, I think we can anticipate a sizable increase. So
Wondered.
Are we
Art?
taking a big hit on, I know you can only recycle certain kinds of plastics, certain kinds of aluminum and aluminum foil,
Glass?
bottles. Are we taking a hit because we're getting stuff in those bins that isn't recyclable? So my understanding is the way it worked was if everything's pure to what you're supposed to have, you get so much money. But if it's mixed, if there's stuff in there that you're not supposed to have, then that amount of money gets reduced. Is that happening? And is that a big problem?
It's not a problem. I gotta say, people in this town, they're very conscious of recycling and we don't see a lot of that. And when we see it, the staff tries to take care of that right away. We try to keep a staff member down there to watch what's going on with the recycling. So it's never in bulk, never where it's, noticeable. They will, when it gets to the facility, they will dock us per se if there were, if there was a large amount, but we're not seeing it.
So I have a question, because some people, I mean, I take my stuff to the dump myself and I divvy it out to one place or the other. In fact, I was there this morning. But there are a large number of people that have their trash picked up by a hauler,
Correct.
not disposal.
Mhm.
And everything is just dumped into a big container and just dumped into their truck. So they're not doing any type of distribution there. It's all going into one big,
Well, no,
Single
Nossing
So-
actually have two barrels. So there's a recyclable barrel and then there is a trash
because
barrel.
I've seen people with just
You
one.
don't have to do that, though, I don't believe.
You don't have to do that? Okay,
So-
well, I know that's the way.
Have one.
Yeah, most people only have one
Right.
barrel.
Okay.
So-
I
And
haven't
everything
noticed
goes
that.
in, everything goes into
Maybe
the
I'm the
barrel.
only guy that bought the barrel. I don't.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know
Uh,
my mother-in-law's house in Orleans, we did that over there for
Yeah.
quite a few summers, and that was. I think all the recyclables went into the second barrel.
Right.
Paper.
Yeah, it's not separated.
Glass.
Yeah.
Yeah, single stream.
Single stream, but we're not doing that in Eastham as far as I know.
Well, yeah, not Eastham, but Nauset is doing, I guess it's offered. I didn't realize it was offered as an option.
Yeah.
So that is a higher cost and we want to be careful.
My life.
It is a higher cost, obviously, for the hauler to not offer that service, but obviously out of professionalism, we don't want to call out the haulers and what they're doing. We can speak for what's going on at our transfer station and we separate and I think our residents do a good job.
Do we make money on the recycling still? I asked as a question because
Right now, we're not. There are some products we do get paid for, but it's not like it used to be.
it's not.
It's up and down, again, with the energy market, the recycling market changes. So
Yeah, I'm just wondering, what's the incentive for a town to recycle? Other than being good stewards of the environment, if there isn't any positive,
It's a good
impact.
question.
It's a rhetorical question. I'm not
Yeah.
expecting you to
No, no,
answer
no.
it.
We've taken that out of the.
that's right.
stream, of the bulk.
the waste stream,
I,
etc.
I agree that,
We pay by the ton to drop the stuff off at Covanta in Rochester. So is the recycling carved out of that? So it's not part of.
it's not part of that cost.
Yeah.
Recycling, these recycling materials, even though we're not getting money for them, that weight's not being added to the truckload.
The trash, yeah.
Okay, and we're not paying to have them
Yeah,
picked up,
No,
recycled. Somebody else is doing all that transportation.
But
well,
again,
yeah, or we haul it out, we'll haul it out bulk to a recycling facility.
But again, the problem is the haulers. The haulers don't take anything out. It just goes all in and goes down to Rochester. And
Not all of them, but again, we don't want to speak for the haulers, but they recycle, we're seeing them recycle. The ones, we let some commercial haulers in and they're recycling. So we don't want to say that none of them do.
Is there a way for us to know what people are paying to dump their stuff is making money based on the cost of running the operation or? Yeah, pluses and minuses or whether it's costing us, even though I pay for a dump sticker.
As opposed to, I guess I don't understand.
Well.
Is your question that there's the fees for dump stickers cover the cost of the transfer station?
Running the business, yeah.
Again, I don't have
That's-
off the top of my head, but I would say the answer to that, just on the expense side, would be yes. But probably not when you factor in the salaries.
Well, yeah, the salaries are the biggest part.
Well, no,
not
in
one
this
of the
case,
biggest
expenses
parts,
are
but
really
a
the
big
biggest part. but-
So the transfer station salaries are very modest. We only have 3 people. So I don't know, the finance committee in 2017, 18, and 19 asked for a lot of information on the transfer station. And we did do cost analysis of those years, and we were ahead of revenue was exceeding expense at that point, not by a whole lot, but it was.
Mhm.
I can get that for you relatively easily, so I can give you at least a high level overview of where that stands. There had been a contemplation. And I'm just not sure I see the utility to it at the moment. But we had contemplated, especially with a renewal coming up on the CMAS contract, should we be operating this as an enterprise fund? Which I guess we could, but it's, and in this case, it's really just an accounting exercise. I didn't see the value of it. It's not like we're gonna be able to allocate costs or recover more costs because we're doing one thing versus another thing. So, you know, if we created an enterprise fund, all the expenses would go to the enterprise fund, but then so would all the revenues. And so how much of a hole do you leave in your general fund? And I'm just not a big fan of enterprise funds in general. This is a discussion maybe for another day, but you know, I've had too many examples over the years where you got enterprise funds running up large surpluses and you've got shortfalls and deficits into the general fund. And it's like, you know, the rest of the town's going to hell in a handbasket, but you got a great, you know, public health nurse program or a great, you know, transfer station program. And
Rich, is the CMAS contract an opportunity for a regionalization of it with other towns? I know that you said they're all out of cycle, but if we lined up, could we?
they won't,
bargain?
I don't think they'll regionalize it. Because we're a legal entity, they're the league and they're contracting with us. But there's no reason we couldn't approach them collectively, right?
Yeah, negotiate, see if you could, you know,
And that's what I'm saying. We got to see who's been up in the last few years, get some lessons learned, and then see who's coming up and try to go in with a similar agenda at least.
exactly, yeah. And it's not gonna happen overnight, like you said, but you know, if something might happen in 2 or 3 years, if you thought there was a savings.
And that's why there's a, you know, 18-month, 2-year lead time on this contract.
Yeah.
Can't just like, oh yeah, next week's that bargaining session, you know.
I remember when we did that analysis Jackie referred to in 2017, 18, and it was helpful in setting fees to it. And that's one reason I think we asked for it to compare what other towns were charging and then where we stood expenses versus revenue. And I think it helped us. We raised some fees, but we had justification.
For doing so.
You have a feel for what the percentage of what ends up at CMAS comes from the haulers we let in? Is it like 5% or 10% or 30% or?
That was
I don't
part of that.
On a percentage basis, as far as haul it from Eastham,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, we allow C and D from other communities as well, right?
Yeah.
And I remember last year at this time, having this conversation with Silvio and looking at that and you know, so we'll have to update that analysis, but basically we were charging more than, it's a pretty good premium versus what we were costing us to do it,
On the C and D.
right?
But on the trash.
But we don't allow outsiders to come in on the trash, do we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The commercial haulers.
Oh, commercial.
There's very few,
Yeah.
because, you know, the bigger companies now have their own facilities. There's a few local guys that dump their solid waste.
But they pay more too.
Yeah, exactly.
So Nassau Disposal has their own facility?
Yes, yeah, they were bought out, so they have a large facility.
I didn't know.
Have you ever heard of a term that I've been reading about lately? It's called anaerobic digestion.
Digester, yeah.
And it has to do with solid waste and I think somebody set something up in Rhode Island and Providence, I think around that area, where they're taking all of the waste from restaurants and
Yeah.
from schools and from stores and making use of it. Is that something that would work in on the Cape here or?
There are recycling committees looking at those types of products, but I think that the cost is extensive. So I don't think it's
Yeah.
anything we'll see.
And I think happen to be the person that did the last study on an anaerobic digester in the
I'm
area. Happen to be the person that did the last study
Oh,
and analysis on an anaerobic digester. Bourne had the best shot of all of us to put one in. But that wasn't financially feasible in Bourne, and Yarmouth has been considering it for years. And finally, we got over $1 million of grants to fund the study and do the RFPs and solicit interests from vendors. And even the vendors, when they finally showed up, they had all the great promises in the world, but couldn't deliver. So it's very financially difficult on the Cape. One of the biggest aspects of it is the seasonality of it. You need constant feedstock.
Lots of
and
people in the summer, but not as many in the winter.
So, the thought was Bourne would be a great spot at the edge of the Cape. And then when Bourne fell through, because they have a huge recycling and C&D facility. When that fell through, Yarmouth is like, oh, well, maybe we could do it. We'll draw from Hyannis and Barnstable, and of course, from anybody past Yarmouth on there. And great idea. And we had a whole concept of a energy park. And we had a septic treatment plant right there that was a great recipient of all the generation that was going to happen. Still not financially feasible, or maybe it is, but it hasn't happened. It's been 5 years. A small, maybe technology changes and then in some small scale operation, but I don't see it happening. But composting continues to be of interest, so it always seems to be coming up too.
Yeah.
So.
Food waste composting.
Are you still providing those compost bins?
I'm not sure if, I don't know if that was going through the DPW or the health department.
Used to be
You
DPW.
buy 'em at
Was
the
it-
dump,
I'm sorry?
I think you can buy the units at the dump, at the transfer station, but I don't know what department was in charge of it. It might have been health.
It wasn't health.
I think it happened last summer.
Harry Tom's has his hand up. I just realized.
Oh,
Hi.
Tom?
Yes, hi, thanks. I have a question about CMAS. I've always been under the assumption that that was our only option for waste disposal. Is that true, or is it our only viable option?
I believe it's the only viable option for the Cape as far as solid waste goes. Recyclables obviously get hauled elsewhere, and construction demo. There's an outfit that takes our construction demo, but as far as solid waste, I believe that's the only viable option. Again, once we go out to contract, we start looking at what other towns are doing. Maybe somebody has, found a better way, but.
Well, Massachusetts has really limited the sites available for disposal. So really, we're looking for out-of-state sites. I don't know if I know there's some in Maine and maybe in New Hampshire and maybe one in Rhode Island.
Yeah, upstate New York.
And other than that, you're going up to upstate New York. And so obviously going to Rochester, Mass is a lot closer than going to upstate New York. And that's the big part of the cost is the hauling.
Yep. Thank you.
so what you're saying is that everybody on the Cape and anybody close to Rochester, they're all going to Rochester?
And it's been a while since I've been involved in that. I don't know if you've ever looked into that facility, but I think they have capacity issues. So that's all part of it too. Were they even going to be able to accept all this? What are we all going to be signing up for as far as deliverables of waste?
Yeah. So if that doesn't work out, but where is everybody?
That's the question.
Yeah, no, I'm serious.
Hauling it, we're
to
gonna
break
have
up
to
the
haul
old,
it away. It's the costs are gonna.
We have to break out the old Swim East t-shirts.
Just one last question on the waste collection. There's this thing down here, maintenance program development and reporting. Is that something new? That, it's
Yeah,
not professional and technical. Is there some new requirements that have been put on us or?
I added that in and
Okay.
I saw that and I'm flagging it and I have to get back to you because the life of me, I can't. I usually am pretty good about putting a note, but I don't know why
Okay,
that's there.
thank you.
So
They're gonna pay you to do it. Any other comments, et cetera, regarding the waste collection aspect?
Oh, you got a hand up there.
Oh, Roy,
Yes, John, do you see composting, having a composting station at the transfer station as feasible in the long term?
As far as food waste composting,
Yes,
Yes, we're talking about it now with the recycling people and we're looking at putting bins there for residents to dump their food waste in. And then a hauler comes, picks it up and takes it away. We're looking at that and possibly paying for it out of the recycling grants that we get.
Right. Thank you.
And I have a question on, under supplies. You have visitor trash bags listed here. What are visitor trash bags?
Good question. I don't know, did we offer bags at one point? For
For litter control.
Yes. Where are you seeing that? Oh, I see.
Are these for dogs, where we've got,
Yeah, so these are just,
the beach and the,
I would imagine those are the things like the trash bags for the beach, trash barrels and trash barrels around the town.
for litter control?
Mhm.
For litter control?
Right, trash cans, trash linings, trash can linings. You know, visitor, I don't know why it says visitor.
Yeah,
trash bag.
visitor threw me off,
That-
but I do know we purchased bags for the town for the,
Well, I-
receptacles.
Yeah, I know we have some places where people can, well, I'm not sure I've seen it actually in town here. I saw them down at the Rock Harbor. They have a thing down there. But somebody can pick up a bag for their dog's litter. Okay, we're on to the tree warden, and I think we discussed.
Yeah.
that. And you said that that's the person that was doing that was Jeffrey Peters was his name?
Yes.
What exactly does this cover? Did somebody go around spraying the trees?
For this, there was a, I don't know, what's happened previous, but I know
Yeah, in my time here, and you can see here, we don't have any expenses on this. I know Jeff Peters was doing this role. I don't know if some of the supplies just came out of the DPW general budget. I've kept it here, knowing the interest of a lot of this community in open space and trees and stewardship. We don't see, I don't know that we have a lot of historic trees. The further you go up Cape and up in Route 6A, trees is a big business and a big deal. And it's very expensive because they got to maintain these old trees and trim them and spray and treat them. But I don't, I'm not, it's not my division, it's not my thing, but I haven't seen that here, but I know it's a big deal in Yarmouth and Barnstable with the historic districts, for example, in Sandwich.
Yeah, the tree warden actually, is there, the warden of the trees per se, you want to protect your older trees and I don't know what right now the need is in town, for someone to be inspecting, but usually any town trees, if somebody had a town tree in their yard and they wanted to take it down, they would call on the tree warden to ask if they could take a town tree down. The town wouldn't want somebody to take a big historic tree down in their front yard just because, they didn't like the looks of it. In the tree warden world, a tree has a right to grow, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, the open space committees worked with DPW folks for Wiley Park, some of the, after storms, especially tree limbs down and that's not specifically probably in this budget. It's just,
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I
that's-
think this is more for the treatment
right, something that's
historical
preventive maintenance
trees.
as opposed to, storm cleanup. And the trimming that happens, well, Eversource, I think, does some, but the town goes along the road and chops some things. That's also a different budget from
Correct,
this.
that's
So,
That's DPW operations.
yeah. And we haven't had those moths.
Yeah,
the-
I know, they were awful. weren't they? They're just hanging off all the trees, all the,
But that would be, if we had a year of those, would they be, yeah, that would be something. If we needed to have, you know, pest control, it would be, I can't even remember the name of them, those moths.
Got-
Gypsy moth.
Gypsy moth, yeah. Yeah,
Mm.
well, but I guess it's good to have a budget, something in there in case that is a need, I guess, so.
We're on to natural
Natural
resources.
Resources.
And I see that I have a question on the greenhead fly. We're about to 3,000. Is that the same thing that used to be a separate entity in the warrant article? It used to be
Yeah.
a separate warrant article.
Yeah, that's the Cape and Islands or Cape Cod Greenhead Fly Control
Mhm.
District or something like that. I just got the letter. So 20,
You're putting it in here rather than having it a separate entity on the
well,
warrant.
the Natural Resources Department would be managing that.
Mhm.
The blue boxes,
Yeah,
that's the
yeah,
same
yeah,
thing.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah.
The big change here, the success story over the last couple of years has been the propagation. Nicole Payne's done a great job of revitalizing that programming and putting out a lot of seed into the estuary and the Nauset Marsh.
The seed clam.
So you'll see that's really picked up. It's really been a couple of years of that being picked up. And that's significant effort. But that's also generated a little bit of additional need for some additional supplies, if you look down below, and then additional vehicle supply. Want to say that really should be probably maintenance. So probably that should be a reclass, but a little bit of increase in vehicle maintenance and supplies for the natural resources due to the propagation efforts.
I think they do an amazing job for how few of them. There needs to be more staff.
Yeah.
More herring counters. Yeah. But they do a tremendous amount of work. Those 3 people.
Any questions on the natural resources? Expense detail? We're down to the Water Enterprise Fund.
I don't have that in front of me because I got to print it out, but I do recall. It's relatively flat. One of the things that needs to happen, this is really just trying to keep a relatively consistent budget. But one of the things that needs to happen now as we're nearing completion of the water system is John and I and the water system engineers need to get together in the near term and look at with all the new connections, because Jackie might have a more recent number, but we've got well over our target now of connections. And so we need to start considering, really not, I mean, we can talk about this budget all you want, but the big element is the future budgets, the operating and the ongoing capital. Because as that project wraps up, now we got to contemplate, painting water tanks and things like that, replacing mains. That's hopefully not for several years yet, but they're expensive projects. So you want to make sure that your rates are covering the operating costs and providing for a capital plan. And so that's part of next year's exercise is the capital plan will be a little further developed on the Water Enterprise Fund. And we'll see, I haven't paid too much attention other than we're generating surpluses year over year. So we have what's called a water retained earnings. We haven't allocated or put it towards anything, but with the conjunction of that capital plan, will probably be an element of committing some of that retained earnings each year to a capital reserve. Because probably the big thing coming up in 5 years or so might be a tank painting.
I have a question because in the past, we've talked about in-house billing. And you have 25,000 in here for implementation of in-house billing, but you're also showing monies for the Penachuk billing at the same time. We've got 25 for implementation. Is that just implementation? And then 27 for Penachuk. If we're doing in-house training, in-house billing, why are we also paying outside resource?
Right, we haven't done in-house billing. That was a project Silvio wanted to undertake when he was here last year, so that's why we put it in last year's budget. That money covers the cost of the software. It's a one-time cost. But in the meantime, we still have to have Penachuk on board doing it, because there's a lead time to getting that software implemented and getting trained on doing it. I have it as a carrying cost. I mean, honestly, I did this probably back in the fall. I don't know what John's schedule is, but I would be surprised if we have the capacity to do this in the near term. So we could drop this, but it's not going to change the overall result of the enterprise fund budget, because all these receipts go into the retained earnings anyway. So we can drop that, because unless you feel strongly that you want to do it.
You're talking about dropping the 25.
The 25,000. But at the time, I probably just put this together, thinking we had some continuity, and now we had some transition.
So the 25,000 was for software? That was not. Oh, okay.
As it would be on our existing financial management system, but it's an additional
The
module.
Munis system?
Yeah. So it's additional, it would be an additional module, and then they do that implementation, and they provide some training. It's it's pretty heavy lift, and with John having a lot on his plate just with facilities, for example, it's probably a higher priority at this point. For you, pretty comfortable sitting here tonight saying that's not likely to happen.
Did we buy the software at all last year?
No.
So we haven't bought the software, and then I assume you'd have to hire somebody to.
Yeah, I would say at this time, let's get the water project completed and then revisit it, that way we'll have a staff member that's, can spend more time learning a new software. I think Penachuk right now is going good. We're getting what we need from them, and the bills are getting paid and
I think
spent out.
that's
And that includes everything, Mary. Their fee includes postage and everything. It's really a very trim operation. There's really no need to change it right now.
Because the actual for 22 was 30,000 and it's being budgeted for 52. So.
yeah. So the
Every year we
30,000.
get More people.
The 30,000 was just the Penachuk fee. We didn't spend a nickel on Munis module. So the 30 was on the overall line.
Yeah, right.
But the point is, we have more customers every year. Right now, we have 2,100 customers and 210 pending. So at each year, we get more people that are signed up for the water system and therefore more billing.
Is that consistent with the plan that you thought, Jackie, you were gonna see in terms of people signing up?
Yeah, we're exactly on target. We wanted to get between 2,000 and 2,500 customers before we brought the tank online. So we will definitely have that number, a higher number when we bring the second tank online. So we're right in the sweet spot of where we want it to be.
Yeah, the budgeting exercise for this fund, it is a little bit different. Wouldn't be necessarily as loose as perhaps as we are on this one, because this is a self-contained fund. If we don't budget these monies, all we end up with is more money in the water fund. It stays within it's self-contained. So for example, down below, you see, this is just based on recommendations of, the project folks. We got placeholders for 15,000 for program costs and 15,000 for supplies. Just because we know we have a new system that's growing and isn't fully operational. So we want to have something in place so that when it is fully operational, we start measuring actual results against that and budgeting appropriately. But the fact that we over budget it in this case is of no consequence to our tax rate or our water rate or to our taxpayers.
Is in-house billing something we will want to do in the future?
I would imagine, honestly, but again, we got to have the capacity in-house to take it on and the ability to do it.
Maybe keep this line just as a placeholder kind of. Right,
For $27,000 though?
25.
25.
Well, okay, 25. But that's just the purchase of the software. So I'm thinking $27,000, you have a contract right now, somebody you're telling me is doing a great job, all inclusive. Can we hire somebody and have them operate for that same cost?
That's per year, though.
We're not.
The software would be one time.
Right. So then,
I
There's
don't,
gotta
I don't
be
know.
some-
That's where Rich
Well,
got.
that, and that was the discussion that Silvio and I had at the time. The time and effort that goes to maintaining a relationship and reconciliation of information and dealing with customers and not having it at our fingertips of our person doing that versus just having it and having it done ourselves. Silvio felt was more efficient to have it in-house. So,
Okay.
you know, he's not here. John is, and we're not in a spot to do it anyway. So let's contemplate that over the next couple of years.
And Rick mentions correctly that software is not a one-time cost. So that's sort of like when we talked about some of the stuff that we lease, where it might be an advantage because there's the updates, we wouldn't,
No, that would be probably be like a $3,500
annual.
annual cost to that.
If the system.
And if they were mailed, I mean, I think there would be costs to bringing it in-house too, beyond the software costs.
And actually Silvio he did a whole analysis. So somewhere in their files, there might be something on this. Or maybe Kim might have it.
Yep.
it's not broke, don't fix it.
Any other comments, questions on the water enterprise?
Mary,
Yes, Roy.
may I ask, what specific functions does Whitewater provide?
Want me to answer that one?
Sure.
Whitewater provides 100% of our operations. So right now they are, they're doing all the meter reading, they're doing all the water testing, they're checking all the wells, they're keeping everything operational. They're on call 24 hours a day in case something happens at one of the well sites. So that's what we're paying for. In addition, during construction, they are also getting paid a little extra money from Environmental Partners Group to do the flushing and testing. Each time we add a new line, it has to be flushed and tested a few times before it goes online. So they're doing all of that too. They also help with the installation of meters. And then we have plumbing inspectors that go in on the other side too.
Do they report to Kimberly?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
And I have one question, Jackie. You mentioned that there are 2,100 on the system and 210 pending. What is the number of people that could possibly be on the system? What's the total people that could sign up?
I think we have 6,100 parcels, but we don't have homes on all those parcels.
Okay.
So we have 6,100 possible connections if everything is built out.
And as you say, that includes vacant land.
Right.
So you don't know exactly how many parcels there are actually people living.
Oh, I'm sure we do know that. I just don't know.
It's around 52 to
I'm
50,
sorry?
about 52 to 5,300, I think it is.
52, 5,300.
I don't know, Joanna, if you might remember from our
Yeah,
testing
you know, the
discussions.
assessors, you know, and
Yeah,
As compared to if you add the 2,100 that have signed up and 210 pending, that's 2,003.
50%.
my father's still holding out.
Yeah, I know some people that are still holding out too.
Well, 40% was our target. So
40% was target.
Well, really? You thought 60% would remain on the wells until they had to sell their property, or?
until they had to sell, until their wells failed, everyone's now going to be in a position where they could hook up. So if their well fails, they can easily, do it at that time.
Hmm.
But we still have roads coming online that have water quality issues, and not necessarily nitrates, but saline intrusion and, other issues where wells are too close to septic systems. So, there's all kinds of reasons why people want to hook up.
What's the average cost to hook up for someone?
Probably
Different?
depends where.
Yeah, there really
5,000.
The
Yeah.
distance from the road to your house.
Yeah, probably 3,000 to 5,000 is,
Sounds about right.
yeah,
5,000.
yeah.
But I think we also have a betterment system, don't we, Jackie? Yeah, so if
Yeah.
you say your house is way back and it costs
Yeah, so
6,000 and you really have a problem, there's a way for the town to help you out.
yeah, out our dirt road, it'd be about a quarter of a mile along the marsh. We'll see if we can get a betterment on that one when our saline goes way high. It's going up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a long dirt road.
It is. Any other comments, questions, et cetera, on the water department enterprise?
Do you anticipate staying with Whitewater? When the system's complete, as opposed to having a water department? Have you thought that far ahead or? No.
No.
Other to say that the trend really is contract ops, especially here on the Cape. Because it's very slim pickings for people to have the licenses needed. And, we had circumstances in a couple other communities where I worked where we were up to the last hour of the last day where we could get a licensed operator to sign off on reports that needed to be submitted to the DEP. And if you didn't get them in, you were shut down. I mean, you can't operate like that. So a contract ops with someone that's always available and has people that can cover for you is probably the way it's gonna go.
Is everybody all set with everything at the moment?
John's got some business to take care of.
Would
so-
you like to, I don't know if there were some questions, I didn't know. Some of them have been answered.
Yeah, I would say some of them, a lot of them were answered.
Yeah, yeah.
Couple here, I guess. The road, there was a question about road signs. Currently, we've installed 45 new signs since the program started, since it started. I don't exactly know the whole history of it, but around 17 signs left in stock that we still have to install. We install them kind of as fill-in work, when the projects are, we're waiting for a new project to start or between the snowflakes. We have about 55 more signs to order. So I just have to check the budget and see where we're at and get on ordering the signs we need.
There was something in last year, I believe, regarding private roads and the cost of the signs. For private roads,
Mhm.
I think it was,
Yeah, we're covering it.
I'm sorry,
We're covering it.
are we covering
We
it?
agreed that we were gonna cover it all.
Yeah, there is a budget for it.
That's correct.
And that's what a lot of them, the 45 signs are come out of.
Mhm.
John, I'd just like to ask you about one road that the sign disappeared. It was on Crosscart Way, right at the end of Squanto. There was a sign there and it's gone.
Okay.
I'm just curious.
Was it a town sign or a private road? Was it a private, like
It
an old
looked
wood?
more like a town sign, as I remember.
Was a town sign?
Yeah,
What's the road? Cross?
Crosscart.
Okay, I'll check it out.
And it was right at the end of Squanto.
Okay. Yeah, I don't recall us removing it, so I can check it out and
Thank you.
While we're on signs, you have any control over the sign coming in on Route 6 to the Orleans Rotary? That's in Eastham.
It was the East Ham Rotary.
Yeah, I know that.
Orleans,
I-
see, Eastham Road.
I'm with you. That's my point. At 6 miles and at 2 miles, there's a sign that says Orleans Road.
State road, there can't.
Come up with something that will stick over it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, since I've started here, I'm learning that. That's,
I was gonna do that one night.
Well, call me up. I'll go with you.
Maybe tonight, Art.
It's like when they changed the exit signs, you know, they didn't.
Oh, yeah, that was a.
yeah, I
we'll
mean,
go into
it's,
that.
I think a lot
Send
of
them a
the
bill
other,
for the plowing when you guys go.
yeah, just put it up. I think a lot of the other questions were answered unless you see something that's,
How's your equipment holding up? You got a
our
good
plow
plan?
equipment is great.
Didn't-
We're doing good. I think, my previous, guys, did a good job with the, replacing equipment and it's been good. I'm
If,
happy.
one of the things prior to you joining the committee, that this committee and the select board recommended was, and town meeting approved a $400,000 override for capital plan funding. And that part of that 400,000 goes to, is allocated amongst a lot of different departments, and part of it is to vehicle replacement.
Mhm,
And
yeah.
so the DPW has a vehicle replacement line, so their duty trucks, so to speak, that they use day to day are on a replacement cycle.
Okay.
And then the chapter 90 funds supplement a lot of the heavy equipment that they use for roadways and things like that.
Good, okay.
So I have a question, a couple of questions. What's the status of the ADA recommendations?
To be honest with you, there's two questions on there that I, right now, I'm not up on. I
Okay.
haven't had time, and the ADA question is one of them. I will get on that, check that out, and the status of the town building review as well. Those two
I was
questions.
a little concerned when we met with the fire department and they indicated that there were an assortment of issues with that building and I'd like to know what the story is regarding what that consists of and the cost or what they feel is the main concern there. And I know there are issues with the your own building.
Absolutely.
And I think we're supposed to be hearing something in March regarding the Council on Aging. Their report, some sort of report has been done on that too, so.
Okay.
That first question on there, I know that came from one of the members of the committee. What are the two most challenging issues facing your department over the next 2 years?
Yeah, I think, well, my first answer was staffing, obviously. Again, we talked about it, we have two positions open, people looking to retire, the second we get these positions filled, we're gonna have people leaving. So I think in the next couple of years and until, the housing market does something, we're gonna have staffing issues. One of the other issues is, climate change, the frequency of heavy rainstorms. I think we're gonna,
Stormwater.
we're seeing the overwhelming in age drainage system. So I'm going around, I'm checking them out, checking out the drainage systems and gonna look at making a plan for what I need to do to upgrade these existing drainage system. So I think, 2 years down the road, I may have a large plan, to come forward with and say, this is what we have to do to improve this drainage further. Until then, we're gonna, improve it as we go. And so I think those are gonna be my bigger challenges. Like I said, I kind of put the drainage one on myself, but I know it's an issue in town and I'd like to see it get fixed.
And I guess I just have a question, the second item on the list here, how could expenses be reduced? And I was wondering, we talked earlier about the CMAS issues and coordinating something with the towns out here, but I'd like to know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I think, again, as far as manpower, my answer to that was, we're all struggling, we talked about that. Or doing each other a disservice by poaching each other, but as far as the resources, I think we need to utilize our county and regional groups for procurement, recycling and waste disposal. We need to utilize, the council of governments and the regional agencies.
DPW purchases a lot of their materials through Barnstable County bid lists.
Sorry, what, Rich?
Through Barnstable County bid lists.
Oh,
Barnstable County has a procurement officer traditionally. And for the foreseeable future, spends a lot of her time doing regional bids. And we participate in those, which saves us a huge amount of time and effort.
mm,
So that's been happening. It's been happening for years and it's going to continue to happen. So that's good. As far as other resource sharing, a lot of the work that they do is manual labor that you got to have a guy on site to do.
yeah, yeah.
The only future I see for that perhaps would be, if you've got larger projects in any individual town that might outweigh the capacity of your crew, perhaps you could, it's almost like mutual aid for
Mhm.
DPWs, or you can give assists to each other on larger projects. But other than that, it's really sharing of supervision maybe and some expertise, if you've got an engineer or somebody like that, that you can share across lines. Not every town might need an engineer, but out of Cape might need one type of thing.
We share equipment,
Project managers.
if we need a piece of equipment or another town needs something, a loader for a day or something, if theirs is down. We help out in that way. So I think as far as the adjacent towns, we work well together.
Any other questions, comments for John before we complete this part of our meeting? I want to thank you very much, and I
Thank
know
you.
you're new, so we welcome you to the town, and
Thank you. Thanks
I
for
know
being
you've got
patient with me.
lot to learn.
Okay, thank you. Nice to
Thank
meet
you.
you all.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, John.
Okay, I'm going to go back to our agenda. The next item is old business. And I have one question for Jackie. The meeting on March 20th for the master plan and the council on aging. On my listing here, it says that's joint. Is that joint, or the finance committee just is able to attend?
You're invited. The presentation, though, is to the Board of Selectmen.
So it's not a joint, what I would call a joint
No.
meeting.
Although, when is the budget hearing? Hold on. I'm sorry, we do have the budget hearing on March 20th. So that would, you would be welcome to make that a joint meeting. We could do that first.
So it would be the budget, and then we would not be involved with the master plan and the council on aging part of it. Is that what you're saying?
Right. I mean, I think certainly the chairman would let you ask questions, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Okay, so what we're saying is that on March 20th, there will be a joint meeting with the select board on the budget. And also at that meeting, not as a joint meeting, there will be a presentation regarding the master plan and council on aging. Am I saying it correctly?
Yes, now I'm thinking that I don't have a date certain for the Council on Aging for the UMass consultants to be presenting to the select board. I gave them that date and April 6th. So they're still getting back to us on which date they're going to be, but the report will be released for that date.
But the master plan is still on for that day.
Right, that's correct.
Okay. Okay, so that's March 20th, a joint meeting on the budget with the select board. my next question is regarding the CPC, the charge for the CPC. Is that, what is the status of that?
I do not have it. The capital projects committee, I do not have that done yet.
Okay. So we'll have to wait. We, the committee will have to wait regarding that. And I just want to comment that Art and I did meet with the search committee, and we interviewed Paul Brown. And I believe he's going to be most likely on the agenda for the select board for next Monday. And he would be replacing Rayanne Palmer as a member of the finance committee. But that won't be until after the next select board meeting. Is there any other old business that anybody would like to comment on? I'm going to go on to the town administrator report and staff updates.
In terms of staff updates, we have made an offer for a police officer. We do still have the 2 openings in DPW that John spoke of. I'm not aware of anything else. I think fire is all set for now. We will be having a wastewater presentation at the next select board meeting. Rich and I are anticipating that we are going to be asking for design and development funds for a wastewater treatment plant in this May's town meeting. So that will be a large capital cost.
I'm sorry, Jackie, you said at the next select board meeting, is that the 27th?
Yes.
Thank you.
We are having ongoing meetings now with Orleans, the town of Orleans, and the DEP to see if we can enter into a joint watershed management plan with Orleans for the Nauset Estuary and Rock Harbor, which would be a huge step forward for us, and would also give some of the Eastham homeowners that wouldn't be covered under our watershed management plan an opportunity to be grandfathered into the not having to do the upgrade to IA systems. So that's moving forward nicely. We are also talking about extending our water line to Maurice's campground on the Wellfleet side. Have had a couple of meetings with that. The plan is in its engineering phase. We have to connect the drive-in anyway, so it's just going further than that to connect Maurice's as well. I think, as Rich and I have mentioned in the past, we would be charging those clients, those non-Eastham clients, the full construction cost to extend the line, plus an additional fee that recoups the capital cost for the whole system over the next 20 years. And those are the 2 biggies, water and wastewater. I don't know, Rich, can you think of anything?
No, those are nothing of substantial as those items, yeah.
What's the status of the RFP for the septic for the town center?
The town center plaza is being installed now. They're doing the site work now.
Of the site work.
So that contract was actually awarded in early January, but there was a delay getting some of the components for the system. So they've just started work now. The septic system bid for 4550 State Highway, or the Beach Plum Motor Lodge, will be going out within the next couple of weeks as well.
I have a couple of questions. Are there any individual petitions that you anticipate with this warrant?
We have not received any petition articles.
When's the deadline?
Monday.
No, I'm not doing it.
A while back, Jackie, we talked about the memorandum of understanding that was at one time in place with the 4 outer towns. And we talked about the fact that all the players have now left except for yourself, and we talked about resurrecting it. Where are we? Where are we on that aspect?
We haven't made any progress in terms of resurrecting it. And I would say, Mary, that at this time of the year, all the TAs are going to be, right now obsessed with budget and town meeting warrant issues, so that we probably won't meet to do anything on that until after town meeting. We have made we do have some arrangements for sharings that we have worked on or are in place, and we have a couple that are going into effect regardless of whether there's the MOA or not, but the formal MOA, we're waiting.
And when we were talking about that a while back, we were talking about perhaps doing some sort of a survey regarding the townspeople and the services that they would be interested in sharing, perhaps. And I was wondering whether a survey of that nature would be something that we could pass out at town meeting, if we put something like that together.
It's possible. Possible. Usually you'd want to do a survey like we did the Tea Time survey, which was mostly online, because it's easier to gather all the data from the questions.
Yeah, I was just wondering if we passed it out. I think we also had the paper at one of our town meetings on the, I can't remember whether it was the strategic plan or something else. It would make, if we passed it out at the meeting itself and asked them to return it when they left the meeting, it would be one way to get everybody to hopefully fill it out or respond or whatever. I'm just trying to think of ways to get the information that we'd like to have. Is that something that would work, or what are your thoughts on that?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Again, I'd rather if we give a QR code at town meeting and people could do it like while they're waiting for the meeting to start, that would be excellent, so that we could gather it electronically rather than in paper. It literally took us months to translate the paper surveys we got from Tea Time into data, because we had to enter them all into SurveyMonkey. So that would be better, but I guess I'd have to maybe meet with you and think about what the questions might be. So,
Right.
I think it's not just what the townspeople think makes sense. It would also then be convincing another town or 2 other towns or whatever that it would also make sense. So I don't know. I have to think about it more. It's a little complicated.
I have another question. In the family support package, there are basically 3 buckets. There's monies there for the pre-K, there's monies there for workforce housing, and there are monies there for, I guess I'll call it nutritional needs. We really haven't used the nutritional needs because the state has been paying for the school lunches, et cetera. If we were to recommend that some of those monies be moved into, or I shouldn't say be moved into, but be used for pre-K to help the town's residents here, would that need to be on the warrant?
No, it's one of the 3 approved items, so we don't need to revote that.
So if we decided to do that, we could do that without going through town meeting.
Yes, and I believe we did do it last year. We were in a little bit of a deficit, not a lot, but
No,
a little, and we used it last year.
Yeah, I think we were over just a little bit. but I'm just saying that there's quite a bit of money in that nutritional bucket there. And whether we could increase what we're providing to the residents for pre-K.
I would not recommend that.
Mm-mm.
I think that the subsidy that we're giving is great.
Mhm.
It's $10,000 per child.
Yeah, I realize that. Are there any other questions that anybody has here for Jackie while we have her on the Zoom? If there's none, I'm going to go into new business. And I just want to remind people, I'm hoping that everybody received the email regarding the conflict of interest. Okay, oh, this one here. Did everybody get an email regarding the conflict of interest?
Yes,
Okay, I just want to make sure that everybody got it.
I did it on a Mac and it worked fine. It
Yeah.
said Macs might have a problem.
Oh,
It
yeah.
did. It wouldn't go-
tried to do it on a Mac,
I'm
it
not-
didn't work.
Wouldn't accept my browser.
Really? No,
Load Chrome and I haven't tried yet.
Huh.
But it wouldn't.
I used Chrome and
Yeah,
it
it
worked.
wouldn't do it in my regular browser.
I tried Chrome and it didn't work on Chrome for me,
Work on.
but who knows?
Hmm.
Who knows what setting is causing?
Yeah, no. Well, I just wanted to make sure that everybody got the link, and I guess if it doesn't work, then I think you can use it, the library. I think you can go to the library and use their computer. Okay. I'm sorry?
I could, but I'm not going.
Oh, yeah.
I want it fixed.
I'm sorry, you
I
what?
want it fixed
You want it fixed?
for the applicant.
Oh, okay. And my last question, Jackie, is, what is the timing for the warrant? As far as the letter from the Finance Committee, it is entailed. They usually have a letter in the warrant.
Right, the warrant's going to the printers the first week in April.
Okay, so,
So I would say the last week of March.
okay.
Coming up fast.
I know that's my concern.
Everything comes up fast. I think it's gonna get-
Anything else that anybody has on new business of any kind? Okay, before I ask for an adjournment, I just wanted to get people's thoughts on when they would like, the next basic meeting is March 1st. Right now it's listed as open. Then on March 8th, we have the CPA and petitions, but there aren't any. And then March 15th, we have the education. Oh, that was another question. When we have the education on March 15th, is that a joint with the select board, Jackie, or not? It's going to be at the library.
I thought we said it would be.
Yeah, I
I
thought so
thought we said
too.
it would be. Yep.
It's a Wednesday.
It's a Wednesday.
Wednesday, yeah,
15?
the 15th. Is that's going to be a joint?
What is it? What is
It's the school, all the education.
Oh, yes.
March 15th. It's going to be at the library because something else is
Planning,
going.
planning board.
Planning board is here, so
Mm.
it's, so that's a joint. Okay, thank you.
We also have received some preliminary budgets from Nauset Regional High School that are disappointing, to say the least.
You mean the numbers are higher than you'd like to see them?
That's correct. We
Okay,
have not
so,
received the elementary school budget yet, but the region's budgets
yeah,
are up considerably.
Mhm. So on the schedule, we're normally scheduled for March 1st, but that's an open meeting. Is there any reason why we should be meeting on that day? Rich, is there something else that we should be doing that I don't know
No.
about?
I don't think so, and probably is a good opportunity for me to consolidate a lot of the late information I'm getting, so I can give you any updates that need to. So,
So I will say that if we don't have a meeting on March 1st, the next meeting would be March 8th. And that would be with the CPA. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
You do.
Russ, do I have a second? Tom? All in favor?
Wait.
1, 2, 3, 4. Is Tom Gardner still on there? Oh, I'm sorry, he's up there. He's up there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8-0. And it is